Welcome to the Stanish Inquisition, a podcast where Stan Zylowski, serial entrepreneur and CEO of Movista, talks with guests about anything from family life to personal life, recipes for success, or grandma's potato salad. The name is dark, but the content isn't. It's often unexpected, occasionally funny, sometimes irreverent, but always interesting.
So hi, this is Kevin Coupe, content guy for morningnewsbeat.com. And I've really been looking forward to this particular podcast session, in part because I'm hoping I can put the lie to an accusation that is occasionally thrown at me, actually more than occasionally, which is that people will write in and say, well, you write a lot about Amazon. You hate stores. Why are you writing about retail and why are you writing about stores if you hate stores so much? And my response to that is always, I don't hate stores. I actually love retail. What I hate is mediocre retail. What I hate is badly executed retail. I don't like retail that doesn't have a story to tell, doesn't have a point of view, doesn't have a clearly stated value proposition. Now, I think that could be used to describe a lot of retail out there right now. Those kinds of retailers I'm not fond of, and I don't think it's going to matter very long because they're going to go away. I'm thrilled today to be talking to Stan Zylowski, who is the CEO of Movista, because their job, as I understand it, and Stan's going to explain all this to me, is in part to make sure that retailers are not mediocre. That retailers are executing and doing what they need to do to provide a valuable value proposition to their consumers. So, Stan, I'm thrilled to have this conversation with you.
Me too.
So, where are you? What's your background? How did you find your way to creating Movista? What, a decade or so ago?
So I got my 4-year degree in only 8 years. I spent most of that time.
But they were the best 8 years, I'm sure.
Legendary. In fact, about half of that time, I paid my way through school and made a living with a company called RiskReward, which sells and markets the rainbow cleaning system. We clean everything in your house using 2 quarts of water, but not getting anything wet. Basically, I was a door-to-door salesman. And when I graduated from school finally, much to my parents' glee, I took a job with a company called Spectrum Brands out of school as a merchandiser, as an in-store merchandiser. So I got some order forms, I got a catalog, I got a list, a single printout list of the stores they wanted me to call on, and I got a feather duster, and they said, "Go get them, kid." And that sort of started my career in retail. I did that for a while. I managed a market. I managed a larger area. I eventually got called home to the corporate office where I did some project management, and then eventually ended up in brand marketing, which was cool because now, if you think about it, I went from being a merchandiser to managing a force of workers to then creating and disseminating tasks that needed to be executed in the field and actually selling those into home offices. And then we got acquired, and they took our name, but we got acquired. The company was moving up to Wisconsin, and they said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Send me to Bentonville." And they said, "Are you crazy?" And I said, "No, man, I want to go." Bentonville was a very different place then, but it was a great blessing. I came down here, and through a series of events, I ended up managing the team here, running our battery business. And through that experience, I not only now again, I'm managing a third-party company, so one of the big third-party service providers who is executing on our behalf. And the fact of the matter was, and we'll talk about this as long as you want or as little as you want today, because I could bore you to death with it, there is no great mechanism that existed at that time for anyone to ensure the work I was paying for as the leader of that team, or we were paying for as that team, was actually happening at all. Forget the quality of the work. If I wanted to know what was happening in Tupelo, I had one choice, and that was to go to Tupelo. There was no validation hooks. It was tough, and it was tough for everybody because being a rep in the field, I recognized fully that I was like a mushroom. I was kept in the dark and fed bullshit. So we needed to break that cycle.
But you're looking at this then and saying to yourself, all right, but this is a system over which there's no controlling intelligence, there's no controlling authority, there's no way to, so that the person at the top or somewhere in the middle whose responsibility is can understand what all the pieces are and what they're all doing and how effective they are.
There's no centralization of the intelligence. That is correct. In fact, there isn't even any decentralized intelligence at that point, right? So now remember, this is 2007. I go back to grad school here as a part-time grad student, and I'm asked to write a business plan as a pure academic exercise. And the business plan I write is, hey, you know what? We're spending bajillion dollars a year. The industry is spending, estimate, $4 billion a year on these third-party workforces who come in and out of retail and are supposed to help execute the vision. And most of that money is being wasted. So how can we bring things to bear or bring technology to bear to help? And so the original idea, Kevin, was that we would put kiosk inside all the mass retailers. And that would at least demand people were physically present to log in and log out and to log their work. And in this earliest iteration, just to show you how technology goes, it was before smart devices. So what would happen is when I checked into the store, I would send you a list of a series of text that would say, reply to this text with a picture of the end cap you built of pork and beans or whatever, right? So that's where it started. And then when the smart, it went back to, got my MBA, went back to work at the company I was working with, Spectrum, and before long it became evident that this was something I needed to go and pursue. And once we left to do that, very shortly thereafter, we built out the kiosk model, and we then saw the iPad for the first time. And when we saw the iPad for the first time, at least from our perspective, it was game over. This is the future. Kiosks are never going to be the right answer. And
so you're doing all that in 2007, 2008. Did it add, incentive, or did it make it even more important to do it that's happening around a time of recession? And so therefore, inefficiency is a much bigger problem when things are going badly as opposed to when things are going really well. You can swallow a little of it, right, when the economy is booming. But if the economy is moving into recession, suddenly you've really got to have a better handle on where your expenses are and where your costs are, and where things are working and where things aren't. Well,
from a standpoint, it's funny you bring that up, because when we speak to our, we have taken investment and we certainly look for partners in space. When we talk about is, you're right, we started this company at a time when efficiency was at the fore because of the economy. But then guess what? Now, and just going back to the beginning of our conversation, coming out of that economic downturn, you started to have this real pressure from online retailing. And we're still, so basically now we went from a condition of efficiency as a must driven by one thing, and now we're in a permanent condition of efficiency as a must. So yeah, from a context perspective, investing in technologies that help you drive efficiency is kind of in vogue, and we really don't see an end to that. It's for a different reason than initially, but we don't see an end to that.
Yeah, 2007, 2008, there were still a lot of retailers out there that thought that e-commerce and Amazon, that's a temporary blip. They're never going to last. I don't think they feel that way anymore.
Yeah.
But I say even then, and listen, there's still some grocery retailers out there who think that Amazon is never going to be able to sell groceries, but that's a much smaller group than it used to be.
But let me real quick touch on something.
Yeah.
Think about this because it's interesting to the arc that you like to think about with brick and mortar. It is true that we were bringing them efficiency, but we decided early on that we were going to be a smart device driven technology. And what we were dead wrong about, we were absolutely correct that the future is mobile devices. We were absolutely incorrect how quickly we would see those adopted in the enterprise space. Man, did that take way longer than we thought. And I'm just throwing that out as a caveat to your point of, we had a great compelling story. We got early mover advantage, but it's taken a while for the smart devices to proliferate within enterprise. went very quickly for customers. But, CIOs as a group tend to be pretty conservative. That may seem counterintuitive, but in big companies they do. So anyway, that's been a journey.
Well, most senior executives, I've always found, are pretty conservative about this kind of stuff. I mean, largely because their jobs often are on the line. And sometimes if you make a mistake in terms of investing in this system or that system, if it's enough money and it's enough time, if it doesn't work, I mean, you may never get out of the hole that you've dug for yourself. So I sort of get why they're conservative.
Pick your poison, buddy. That's all I say. To me, it's all about the board, and it's all about the risk-reward profile. I hear you. I recognize and agree with you that they tend to be more conservative, but I question whether or not that should be true. You can't be conservative when if you take that path, you're in a dead man's spiral. You've got to take chances. You've got to be proactive. You've got to be willing to take a reasonable percentage of your profits and reinvest them in R&D or technology or whatever. It may not even be that. Maybe consumer programs or whatever it is. And so I agree with you that they do tend to be conservative, but I think there's a dangerous point in there somewhere.
Okay, so you create Movista in 2010, and you said there's the what and the how. So let's talk about the what. When your clients come to you, your customers come to you, what is the what that they want?
Well, it can be a couple of things, but essentially what they want to do is they want to be able to do the functions of managing their workforces and the work itself through a single pane of glass. That's really what it boils down to. So if I say to you, what technology are you using today for doing in-store surveys? Are you collecting photos? Are you GPSing your folks? Do you know where they are? How does someone access a planogram? In what system do they do that today? How does your team communicate? If I'm a store and I want to get a hold of a vendor, how do I go about doing that? If I'm a vendor and I want to get a hold of a store, what's my mechanism for doing that? Can I share schedules? Can I partner with my brands that are coming out of my store from a perspective of tasking and communication, that sort of thing? The answer is almost always we do that, but we do it with this system, this system, this system, this system, and that system. And we don't do that or that or that at all because we don't have a means for doing it, right? So what they find when they come to us is we've taken all of those critical business functions and we've put them through one single application, one pane of glass. And most importantly is we allow them to use that pane of glass not only to manage their business, but to communicate and partner with the other entities. Where, as an example, if I'm a retailer, I can manage my store floor via this solution and make sure all my tasking is happening the way I want and all my files are being shared to this solution. But I can also allow my vendors to be in this solution so that I have one central view of everything that's going on inside my location. And that's what we bring to the table.
Is it as simple as, it's hardly a new observation that one of the biggest problems with, especially food retail has been its silos, right? Nobody talks to anybody else. In essence, these are silos that exist almost at a granular level that you're wiping away and creating something, in fact, a kind of ecosystem.
One version of the truth, right?
Yeah.
Harmonization of effort. Well, there's a million terms for it. I like one version of the truth. What we're trying to do is say, look, the simplest example is this. In retail today, if a customer walks into a location and there's an end cap of pork and beans, the reality is one of three groups could have built that end cap, right? It could have been the retailer, it could have been the brand that makes those pork and beans, or it could have been some third party that was hired to do it.
Right.
There's a 66% chance, as the retailer, I can't tell you who built it. Now, that doesn't work if I have one store. Like if you opened one store, Kevin, you had one store, and you would pick your employees and you'd pick your product and you'd lay out your promotion plan and all that sort of thing. And the day you threw the doors open, all these people come rushing through the front door to represent their own agenda and to do what they want to do. Is that going to work for you? Probably not. Well, try that over 200, 2,000, or 4,000 stores. It doesn't work. It's broken. Mm-hmm. And it's highly inefficient. We talk to companies and say about their scheduling inside their stores, and they tell us how they consider the availability of the work staff, and they consider the when deliveries are going to happen and POS and all this sort of stuff. And we ask them point blank, do you consider at all the coverage you're going to get from your brands or your vendor partners? No, we have no visibility to that. None. So does that make any sense to anybody? I don't think it does. And it certainly doesn't when we get a chance to sit down and talk to customers. Does that make sense to them either? But at the same time, what are you going to do? That's kind of the feedback we get. And that's when we explain that, there is an option.
I was going to say, do they realize that when you explain it that way, it's evident that they have a problem. But do they realize that? Do they realize that coming in?
No.
No. So
that's our challenge. That's Movista's challenge. That's why we do things like podcasts with really cool people. In all seriousness, I will tell you, this is an absolute fact. 50%, I would say maybe more, of the clients that we speak to are flabbergasted that products like ours exist in the marketplace. And look, I'm not going to, if we were the only product in the world that sought to solve this problem, then it's probably not a real problem. So we certainly have competitors in this space. The thing that we do differently is when we go to talk to a brand that wants to manage their field team, we have a certain set of competitors that we run into. When we go to talk to retailers, there's another set of competitors. When we go talk to service companies, there's another set of competitors, but they don't overlap. So the way we're attacking this differently is to sit in the center and be the hub for all those spokes. That's sort of our, remember a product price or transactional? That's our transactional advantage. You're
sort of fighting a three-front war, but you're the only ones who realize that it's actually a one-front war.
That's correct.
It's the same war.
I don't know if we're the only ones.
But it's all the same war.
You're right.
And it seems to me at some level, and feel free to disagree with this description if you want, but there's the art of retailing and there's the science of retailing, right? And it seems to me that you want to find, not you, but retailers ought to be looking for these kinds of systems, these kinds of efficiencies, these kinds of solutions to the science problems that they have, so they can spend their time and their individuality working on the art.
I'm going to make it even. Yes, I agree with you. However, I'm going to add even more impetus to that. Do you know how much time and energy retailers spend deciding which products to put on the shelf, in what quantities, at what price?
No idea.
Here's what we know. We know that there's 18,000 people working a half mile from me, and most of their job is to get the product to the store where it's supposed to go, right? And priced in a certain way because of all this stuff. The point is they put all of this effort into these programs, developing these programs. And then for whatever very odd reason, the last 5 steps of the journey are just pretty much left to hope. We hope it works. Can you validate for me, if I go to any retailer and say, can you validate for me what products were on display or were not on display, validated last Black Friday? 90% cannot do it. They cannot do it. But how much time do they spend curating Black Friday? Right? It's ungodly. So my point to you is you're talking about getting to great. I'm talking about simply backing the bet that you've already made. And then, of course, you do get to great, which is the even better story.
The metaphor that you make me think about is this is almost like if what you described is this: if you sent men to the moon, right? And you figured everything else out until they were actually at the moon. And then you said, okay, then you figure it out on your own.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Right? Pretty much. We're going to get you 10 feet. We're going to get you, We're going to get you onto the surface, but You're going to have to get in and out of the right. Well, and let me tell you this too. Another example, though, and very candidly, is the fact that although this is a funny one that you chose, we have video validation that occurred, at least allegedly. I just think there's a million reasons from behavioral science all the way through to put something in place that, now remember too, I want to say this is super important to me because of where I came from. It also sucks to be a worker. It's also hard to be a worker. It's hard to not really be clear on what you want me to do or what those expectations are. I want to share a story with you real quick. And this, you got to have a little bit of background in it, but when you complete a project in our system, it's called an M plan, which is M as in merchandise, so M plan. And if you have a very urgent thing that comes down from on high, we call that a hot task, right? So the way the system works is I'm standing in a retail environment, and I'm doing work, I'm submitting my proof of performance, and I'm getting another task, and I'm getting another task, and I'm getting another task. And so, and it's based upon what I can do. So if I don't know how to assemble something, I'm not going to see an assembly task as an example. So anyway, I'm having a conversation with the CEO of one of our partners at retailers, one of our retail partners. And I say to him, we're really interested in this concept of maybe getting into employee, where you get points and things away, right? Mm-hmm. Employee recognition. And he goes, let me tell you a story. He said, my son worked for X company last summer, all summer long. And when he came home at night, he'd sit down at the dinner table and I'd say, how'd your day go? And he would look at me and say, I did 13 M plans and 3 hot tasks. That is awesome, right? That is awesome because it goes back to what you were just saying. People are compelled. People are compelled to be efficient, to do more, to bank themselves against something. So it's beyond efficiency, I guess, is the term. What I'm trying to share with you, Kevin, is beyond efficiency, and it goes into the realm of actual compulsion to act. And as a worker in the field, the ability to get fulfillment. I don't care whether you make $10 an hour or $40 an hour. You want to feel fulfilled at work, in my opinion.
So when you look at what you think retail is going to look like tomorrow, you talked a little bit about retail today, a little while ago. What do you think retail tomorrow is going to look like in terms of bricks and mortar stores?
Well, one thing I would tell you is that I think we're on the cusp. We're probably a few years away, but we're on the cusp of being able to answer a question that was unanswerable forever, which is where exactly in every store is the product, and is it in stock, and does someone need to do something? I think there's just too many people chasing that problem right now to believe it won't be resolved. And there's too many technologies now that we didn't have before. And that's really going to be a game changer. So, going back to the example of the retailer we were talking about before, doing predictive modeling to say, not that the old model is, we're out of X, I will go get some now, right? That's the old model. The new model is, the systems are doing the work, whether that be a robot or a drone or a camera or a POS study or whatever it is. And then that's creating a signal, which a system like Movista reads, and we convert that system into a job. So that workforce inside the store doesn't have to go and see that I'm out of something or predict that I'm going to be, because the system is doing that. And before I ever run out, I'm going to go grab that item and restock that shelf.
Well, listen, this has been fascinating. And Stan Zylowski, CEO of Movista, I really appreciate you spending this time. I've learned a lot. I think that you make a compelling case to retailers out there, as well as to vendors, for why this makes sense. If brick and mortar retail is going to survive, they've all got to be better. I mean, there's got to be room to make mistakes. There's got to be room to experiment. There's got to be room to apply both the art and the science of retail. So Stan Zylowski, thank you so much for your time. My name is Kevin Coupe. I'm the content guy for morningnewsbeat.com, and I hope I see you down the road.